Welcome to the Bertie Shirtie tutorial. I hope you have as grand of a time here as we had. Before assembling your shirt, stay stitch the front and back neckline edges at 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimeter, to prevent stretching. While sewing the neckline in one continuous pass may be tempting, sewing from the shoulder to the center neckline will help prevent the neckline from distorting. We're going to be working on the shoulder construction now using pattern pieces 1 to 3. With right sides together, place shirt front, which is pattern piece 1 or 2, over shirt back, which is pattern piece 3. Pin shoulders in place. Sew your shoulder seams with the 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimeter, seam allowance. Finish shoulder seams with a zigzag or overlocking stitch. Press the seam allowance towards the back side of your shirt. The Bertie Shirtie neckline is finished with bias binding to enclose the raw edge. With this method, the binding is visible on both the inside and outside of the shirt for a clean finish reminiscent of a classic t-shirt. We'll be using pattern piece number 4 for the neckline binding. With wrong sides together, press the binding in half lengthwise. Unfold, then fold each long raw edge to meet the center crease and press again. Unfold. Fold the binding in half so that the short ends align right sides together. Pin and stitch with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, which is 6 millimeters. Finger press the seam allowance open. With right sides together, match the binding notch to the center front neckline and align the binding seam with the center back. Pin in place, stretching the binding slightly to fit the neckline. If your binding does not stretch easily, lengthening it may help. Stitch in the pressed fold, which should be a 1/2 inch or 1.3 centimeters from the raw edge. To keep your neckline from getting too bulky, trim down your binding seam allowance to a 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters. Don't trim the seam allowance on your shirt's neckline. Press the neckline binding and seam allowance towards the inside of the neckline. Fold the neckline binding to the wrong side of the garment so the outer fold covers your neckline stitches. A washable glue stick is really great for basting, especially when you want to be precise. Starting at one shoulder, edge stitch the binding until you return to your starting point. Backstitch and give the neckline a good steam press to help it lay flat. We're now going to work on the short sleeve prep. With wrong sides facing up, press the edges of your short sleeves in by 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimeter. Press the sleeves in by another 5/8 inch, which is 1.6 centimeters. Next, I'll show you how to prep the long sleeves using pattern piece 5. If you're making the short sleeve Bertie, you can use the chapters in the description to jump ahead to the side seam construction. With wrong sides facing up, press long sleeve hems in by 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimeter. Press the hems in another 5/8 of an inch, which is 1.6 centimeters. We're now going to work on the long sleeve construction. Match long sleeve center notch to shoulder seam. Pin in place. You may notice the bodice piece extends a 1/4 inch, which is 6 millimeters, past the sleeve piece at each end. This is intentional and will help the sleeve sit correctly when sewn. Stitch sleeve to bodice with a 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimeter, seam allowance. Finish your seams with a zigzag or overlocking stitch, then clip off the excess sleeve corners, trimming from the sleeve edge to the underarm curve. Press seam allowance towards the sleeve. Let's work on the side seam construction now. Align the side edges of the front and back bodice, including the sleeve edges. Pin in place. Sew the side edges together with 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimeter, seam allowance. On the short sleeves only, clip the seam allowance at the sleeve fold before overlocking. Finish side seams and press towards the back of the shirt. For the hem completion, refold your sleeve hems, slightly stretching the sleeves for a smoother fit. For neat hems, I like to baste them in place with a washable glue stick. With wrong side facing up, press the edges of your bodice hem in by 3/8 of an inch, which is 1 centimeter. Press the hem up by another 5/8 of an inch, which is 1.6 centimeters, and secure in place. Sew sleeves and bodice hems a 1/2 inch, which is 1.3 centimeters, from the folded edge. When sewing small openings like sleeves, it can help to turn your garment inside out and sew with the right side facing up. And that's a wrap, folks. Congratulations on your Bertie Shirtie. I'd love to see your finished make.